You know, Steve Jobs used to say the most difficult decisions and the most important ones are not what to put in, it's what to leave out. It's to simplify. If you look at Apple's product line versus Sony or Panasonic, you know, they keep adding and adding and adding products. What does Apple do? It keeps reducing and reducing the things it focuses on.
That's the genius. I mean, you know, that is it, and that's what I tell people. And again, it's not as simple as just saying it. You have to select correctly. But while a lot of things are wonderful, as you point out, no company can do all of those. So what a company has to figure out is what is its unique DNA? What is it that we take to the market in the way of a service or a product? What can we deliver better and more elegantly than anybody else? And that's what you focus on. So what you do is try to go through and create an innovative atmosphere throughout the entire company. Because if you only allocate innovation to the R&D department, you're never an innovative company. Innovation is invention plus commercialization. You know, if it's just R&D, R&D will constantly think about invention, and you'll go every direction you possibly can around that. I sometimes describe it like two balls. You know, you have this ball here, which is you, and you have this ball, which is the market. If you just are the inventors, you can go 360 degrees around this ball. Every direction is interesting, and because you don't know enough, all of them look attractive, you know, maybe some a little bit better than others, but you don't know which one to select. It's only when you actually take the ball and connect it, the ball of the consumer with the ball of you, that you see that suddenly, instead of 360 degrees around where you are that you could pursue, suddenly there's only about 20% of that actually makes sense. So the first step is to be able to try to relate to, identify to, communicate with the customer. If you go back to what I was talking about before, if you can ask them what they want and they tell you, now that's a way to simplify it. And even though you could put 10,000 additions to a television screen, somebody wants one that just works intuitively. So you say, okay, you know, so let's focus on intuitive. We don't need 7 control devices for most of the market. We probably do for the techies in Silicon Valley, but for the person who's sitting at home, you know, where I came from, Spokane, Washington, we want something that works elegantly. Maybe we can talk to it, and we say, would you give me channel 32, or even better than that, would you give me, you know, Anderson Cooper on CNN, and it automatically gets there. That's the machine that's going to work. And so the way you define it, in my view, is deselect. You deselect by listening to the consumer, and then you get a culture of the entire company agreeing to the fact that we're going to innovate, we're going to break standards. Don't worry about the fact that we're obsoleting ourselves, because if we're not obsoleting ourselves, our competition probably is. You know, life doesn't go on any longer. 17-year life on a patent is kind of ludicrous, because it's an exponential increase in speed that is happening in the marketplace of innovation. 95% of all technology ever invented was invented in the last 5 years, and this exponential curve is continuing. So don't think that you're ever going to get ahead of it. Just think, what is your slice of it that you're going to get?
Well, the only reason for a new company to exist is that it's trying to pursue a better way of doing something.
Yeah.
Large established companies, their DNA is to basically preserve what they have. So it's almost against their basic sustainability to say we're going to devalue what we're doing to go try something entirely different. Therefore, it's the upstarts, the startup companies that are taking the risks, and many of those risks don't work out the way they want, which is, as you pointed out so clearly, you have to have an appreciation that failure is a learning process. And that's something which I know you've been talking about a lot, that you think failure needs to be explained, with more acceptance across the whole business world, that it's a key part of success.
Absolutely. I keep telling people that failure is the secret sauce of Silicon Valley, and it's something when you go to these other countries you don't see that are small, and you certainly don't see it at large companies. I mean, the good news for me, being an entrepreneur and loving the startup business, is that you do have a green field, an opportunity for small companies, because the large ones are, as you say, trying to preserve their own thing, and they're trying to maintain it. So even though they have all the resources that they should be able to kill the smaller company in terms of capital that they have, in terms of brains that they have, in terms of established distribution, what happens is that they don't have that audacity, and they don't have that need to exist. I mean, the small company probably has, if I've convinced them to deselect, they have one product and everything rides on that. The large company has hundreds of products, and if one doesn't work, it doesn't matter. But these people are as focusing in the smaller entrepreneurial on their difference, and they are going to make it work. And then if they accept failure, if they try it and fail forward, fail fast, that's what David Kelly's work's all about, this design thinking. Respond to it. Don't worry so much about it perfecting it. I mean, Voltaire was the one that said, perfect is the enemy of good. Yeah. It was a long time ago, but he got it. Yeah. And it still applies right now. And if you can do that, if you embrace it, it is great. Unfortunately, as I mentioned to you earlier, I've written a manuscript on failure that is, it explains why it happens so people don't have to replicate everything that I've seen in something I was involved with. But publishers aren't too enthused about that. They're very eager to the successes, and they want to talk about, you name it, whether it's Google or whether it's Steve Jobs' work or whether your work, whatever, but they don't want to hear about the small ones that bounce, that actually created the crucible in which other businesses actually jumped out of it and succeeded.
Yeah, and some cultures, Japan loves perfection.
Yes.
So they will work towards perfection, the iterative process of making mistakes, learning from it. How do they deal in a world which is so much the way you've described, where it is about iterations, it is about learning from mistakes? How does a culture like they have in Japan that has focused on perfection adapt to this kind of new world?
Well, it's very difficult to do. And if you would look at the businesses like Panasonic and Sony and whatever, I was reading just yesterday, it was how Sony is going to change their approach to doing things. But they've lost a lot to the Koreans, LG, Samsung, and those. And why have they lost out? Because Samsung hasn't been afraid to fail. They just throw product after product at the marketplace. Well, the perfection is going on at Sony, and the perfection is going on at Panasonic. The others are coming out with something that's almost there, product 2.0, product 2.1, product 2.2, constantly evolving. And so it is very difficult. Obviously, you can bring people to Silicon Valley, and most of the companies from Japan that I've seen have set up skunk works in Silicon Valley. Unfortunately, in my experience, they don't learn very much from them. It's almost more that they want to tell their investors that they have a Silicon Valley address, but it isn't like the culture is actually coming across. Because it is culture. It isn't things about what do you learn or who are the scientists that you have, because there's brilliant people all over the globe, and frankly, they're a lot cheaper in places around the globe than they are in Silicon Valley to find these brilliant people. It's just a cluster of them there, but how they work together, how they believe they're going to succeed, that's more important than the fact that there's abundant financing, that there's lawyers that know how to take a company from start to IPO, that there's banks that actually understand risk-taking, that all these portfolios.
Well, great. Hap, this has been a wonderful discussion. Your ideas are stimulating. You're obviously as passionate about the future as you were when you co-founded North Face back in 1968. The work you're doing in trying to reinvent advertising in a digital era is just fascinating to me. Been such a great pleasure having you here. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, John. Thank you.